caption is, not unlike the script, Muscoy, June 1961. So you get this desert, grim, bleak, hot scene with old beat-up cars.
Spooky Empire.
Spooky Empire, yeah. And, you know, a mangy dog tied to a hitch, and some people attending some kind of service. And I didn't really bother with a million other details. I could have drawn in clouds and, I don't know, the various grains on the hill and a goat or two, but who needs it, right? The basic elements are there, and it gives you a setting that now you can open to a new world and meet characters. Here's how I work, or how I work on the Molting at least, but I also did it with Repo, but to a lesser degree because we were dealing with real actors as opposed to drawings. So I have my setting, and now I'm going to create the people that populate that setting. And in this case, I have a background in animation, so it's kind of showing when I do stuff like this. But it's basically a character model sheet where you draw the characters, you design their wardrobe, but most importantly, you design how big they are in relationship to each other. Again, thinking big to small. That's so much more important than, in the big picture, how cool some little bit of fabric is. It's like, do these characters really exist in this world? How do they relate to each other? And you know, it doesn't need to be perfect, but you can see right here that is a cast of characters. And for those of you that read the first issue, they appear on all, whatever it is, 36 pages of it, and you get a basic sense of their scale. It's kind of like a police lineup for animators. So then I start drawing the characters into the scenes. And in this case, I typically draw for the comic book stuff and for Repo. Everything was done about 11 by 17. I don't usually work much bigger. I sometimes work smaller. And I basically I ink the work, I scan it, and then I end up, the rest of the process is digital. It becomes colored digital, digitally. The lettering goes in digitally, and all the final formatting, and of course printing is digital. But this is a representation of just what it looks like, the line work. And in this case, I was using just pins. And then it goes through a phase of, sorry, I wish I had a bigger screen. I hope you guys can get at least the essence of what I'm showing here. It's not that, I just wasn't informed that I was going to have an hour-long speak, or I would have prepared something. That said, I'm happy to be doing it. This is edgy. it's metal.
This panel is so you.
Yeah. So then it's raw, exactly. Baby, I like it raw.
I'm so glad I got that on
Oh,
film.
baby, I like it raw. So then it goes through a phase of adding colors, and I'm just going to show you a real shorthand version, but it's not unlike picking out your own wardrobe. There's a million ways to color a scene, and we ultimately didn't go with this sort of Technicolor choice here.
It looks cool that way.
But originally my idea was for the Molting, there's two basic settings. There's the past and the present, and the past has this very simple childlike drawings, and the present's much more gritty and painterly and blocky. And conceptually, I was thinking that the past exists in memory, so it's a little less filled in. Perhaps it's more malleable, and the present is real and heavy. And so I wanted the two drawing styles to represent that. And so initially I was thinking that how cool would it be if the present was all kind of gray and muted, and the past, unlike how you typically see it in movies, when they show a flashback, it goes into like sepia tones or black and white. How cool would it be if the past was like Technicolor, you know? So, but ultimately I decided against this because I felt like it made it hard to relate to the characters. Oops, wrong way. This is to show you like basic process. I mean, it went through 100 of little color swatches and stuff of changing the tone until ultimately settling on
orange.
This, which I felt was still kind of weird and gaudy, but it also felt like a desert. It felt a little bit more like these could be real people, even though they're drawn in a very, very cartoony way. So now moving forward to the new issue, again,
Hey.
jumping forward to the present, I start with the setting. In this case, Anaheim, September 1992. Again, right? There are figures in this frame, but you don't see any faces or anything yet. You're just basically getting thrown into a world, and that is, I think, the first character, at least that I like to establish, and I think generally a good way of setting and telling a story.
That's always a full moon.
Yeah, it's night. It's there's something dangerous happening, right? In this case, it's a burglary. So again, this represents two 11 by 17 pages that I drew that connect into one spread. So what I basically do is I draw and ink it. In this case, I used a brush for all of the molting too. I didn't use pens, just to give it a different look, a little bit more expressive, more movement, like I talked about. I used some sponging techniques to make the trees. I don't know if those are the artists. It's basically you can buy these sea sponges at art stores.
Oh, wow.
You dip them in paint, kind of like those bad painting shows you see on TV.
Yeah.
And then you just transfer that paint, and it creates random patterns that end up looking like foliage.
That's a really good idea.
Blots, and and there's different. Like there's also with this, you'll see that I did like paint splatter and stuff as well.
But like whenever
So-
I used to draw trees in comics, I could never do it. That's
You
such
know
a
what?
good
That
idea.
you could do it with a brush, but this is like
I
it's
know,
so
that's
quick.
such a
It's like
good
bam,
idea.
bam, bam, and you have
I never
foliage.
thought of that.
So the next step I do after, and of course this is not without planning and stuff first, is I block in. Actually, I should say this first. I'm sorry to jump around a bit. Following the script,
Really?
I basically do little thumbnails
See, sponge brush.
of what the pages look like.
Ooh.
Very simple work, right? But it tells me where the panels are going to go. I know what page and how it corresponds with the actual script. And then I take these and I blow them up.
So like
In essence,
storyboarding.
Kind of. Although it really only needs to work for me, whereas storyboards have to communicate with a crew of strangers. But basically what I do is I take these and I scan them and I blow them up, enlarge them to the size of the actual paper I'm going to be working on. I put that on a light table, and I'm basically tracing my crude drawings. But this gives me composition, so I don't need to worry about that, and that's when I put in the details. And I think I have examples of that in here. It may be slightly out of order, I apologize. But then I crudely block in lettering, because I'm directing the book, so I'm working with a letterer and a colorist. So I need to find a way to communicate with them in a visual way. So I set up these sort of templates that, of course, they take and make better, because I'm not a letterist. This is just whatever word font number one, crappy Photoshop box. But when you take it to a real letterer and you see what they do with it, it's like amazing. It starts to give voice to what you're doing. But the letterer isn't ultimately the storyteller. It's my job to let them know what's on each page and basic pacing and flow. Here we go, colored. Just to give you something conceptual.